Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar, Hands-on Fun with StarNet. My name is Brooks Mitchell, and I am joined here by Kelly and LeConte, and we'll have a few members of our staff come in too. We have a lot of fun hands-on activities to show you. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of changing cameras and all of that, so bear with us to a certain extent. All right, so I have our poll up there. I'll give you guys just a few more seconds to answer your poll. We just wanted to kind of get an idea, how do you as a library do feedback after you, or gather feedback after you do a program, whether it's a STEM program or some other type of program? What's the best way to figure out how much your patrons enjoyed it? And I have some initial results in. Let's see. I'll give a few more seconds for you guys to answer. All right, we'll go ahead and broadcast those results. So it looks like most of you guys do that through discussions and conversations, and I know that's a really effective way to talk to your audience and to get to know your audience better and figure out how much they enjoyed a program. So that is good to know. Thank you guys for that feedback. So we'll go ahead and jump right into today's agenda. I'm going to go over a few valuable resources that we offer here at StarNet, ways that you can kind of improve some of your professional development. We're going to launch into our first activity. It's kind of an icebreaker warm-up activity called Team Machine, and we'll have some of our staff members come and join us for that. Then we're going to go into kind of a suite of engineering type activities. So the Rocket Car Distance Challenge is a really fun one. Who Dirtied the Water is kind of setting the stage for some other activities. Low-Tech Water Filter, Wind Turbine Tech Challenge, and then we'll do a Q&A and kind of get a little feedback at the end. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We will post those links in the chat box, and I sent an email out earlier with those links too, so feel free to pull up the activities and check them out as we are going over them. So of course we want to thank some of our partners. NSF and NASA help us fund a lot of these great webinars and a lot of this professional development. And I just want to talk a little bit about our StarNet website. It is an online community of resources specifically for a library setting, so there's a lot of professional development resources there. Webinars, which of course you guys know about. We offer newsletters about once a month. We have people writing blogs, there's forums, how-to videos. It's just a big suite of different professional development resources specifically geared towards libraries that are trying to get STEM into their library and do STEM programming. So I will do a little plug for some of our upcoming webinars. Well, first, we have our link there to where we keep and store our past webinars. We archive them, we upload them to YouTube. So you can find some of the other ones. This will be up there within a day or two. And feel free to share that, view it as many times as you want. On November 15th, we have a really exciting webinar I am super pumped up about. Jason Townsend, he is NASA's social media director. He's going to be joining us to talk about social media in libraries and social media, kind of how to share good scientific content, how to craft a good blog, a good post, what kind of language to use, where to find good images, things like that. So if your library struggles with social media, or you do a great job with social media and you want to learn how, a Twitter account with 26 million followers handles social media, that'll be a really good webinar to attend. It's filling up pretty quickly. I'd recommend go ahead and signing up and registering. And on December 13th, we'll be doing a webinar all about STEM events for your library's 2018 programming. So I realize more and more as I do these webinars that you guys are excellent planners, and you are probably already planning for summertime of 2018 and beyond. So I wanted to offer a webinar that would kind of outline what's going on in 2018 and allow, kind of give you a little bit more heads up on some planning and maybe showcase a few different activities that you could do for some of those different STEM events. So of course our STEM Activity Clearinghouse, we are constantly updating that, adding more and more activities. We've added some really good engineering activities lately. And we just kind of have our format here. Of course, all of our activities are easily sortable. And we recently kind of revamped our review system. So if you do one of these activities, make sure to jump on, leave a review, let other library staff know what worked, what didn't work. We kind of want to grow it into this really easily sortable resource for you guys. So you can say, I need an activity tomorrow that needs to be about 15 or 20 minutes, it needs to be low budget, and it needs to be about engineering. We could go and you could check all those boxes and find a really good activity based on that. Okay, so with that, I am going to go ahead and turn things over to my colleague. I just have to figure out how to do it real quick. All right, there she is. All right, this is Kellyanne LeConte. She's the Professional Development Manager here at SSI, and she's going to talk a little bit about the engineering design method, and then we're going to jump into a fun activity.
Hey, everybody. So I just wanted to let you know that as part of the activity guides that you'll find on the Clearinghouse, several of them include this design graphic, which is our simplified version of the engineering design process. It's got the different stages that one might go through in a creative process, thinking about what you're going to make, building something, testing it out, and then trying something else. Do it again, change something, and then think about it some more. Just keep going through that iterative design process. So we have this available to you, and it's during the pilot test of several of these activities, the kids in the programs really responded to this, and getting that sense of, not that there's 4 steps that thou shalt follow, but that there's a cycle that you go through, and it's okay if it doesn't work the first time. So feel free to print this and hang it up on your wall or refer to this process and just encourage those kids to keep trying and don't give up on their own creation. So we're about to go into an activity that demonstrates this process. So we're going to bring in a few of our colleagues and have them demonstrate an icebreaker called Team Machine. And for this is very simple. We're going to have all of our lovely colleagues. So we've got Anne, Jennifer, Greg, and Brooks. They're all going to help with this making a human machine. So first of all, you're all going to stand in a circle.
I think we can handle that.
And Anne, I'm going to hand you the ball here. Let me just advance the slide so you can see some of the steps here. So the first step being, of course, form a circle. And this is just a very, very simple icebreaker kind of activity. The idea being that they're in a circle and they're going to introduce themselves and toss that ball, not to the next door neighbor, but to someone kind of across the way. And then say that person's name. And we're just trying to set a pattern. So why don't you guys go ahead and toss that to each other and say each other's name. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Jennifer.
Brooks.
And
all right, our pattern is set. So please remember that person's name. You're going to keep passing to that person and saying their name because, of course, it's an icebreaker. And that pattern is what we're going to be designing from as we do an engineering design process here. We're going to think, how can you make that ball go around while saying each other's name in that same order as fast as you possibly can. And the only rules are that you must keep talking. Everybody's got to catch the ball, and everybody's got to say the recipient's name. So what would you like to do?
Just try it really fast and see what happens.
See what happens.
All right, ready?
You ready? Great.
Jennifer. And
woo! All right. You all on the webinar with us, do you have any ideas? What could they do to go even faster? Anne's done this before, and she's pretending very well to be puzzled. Step closer is one idea. Okay. Oh, form a circle. Hand it to the other person. Oh, these are some great ideas. What do you all think? Let's do it.
Let's do it. Try a circle. Okay.
Closer. All right.
Yeah. And.
Woo! All right. All right. So got even closer. How about we try the one that's form a circle? And that you're already in kind of a circle. I'm imagining that Pam, your ideas that maybe you should reposition yourself. What all do you think about that?
Okay. So you right here, Jennifer. Oh. But then I'll have to get it over to you. So.
Circle.
Okay. Yeah.
Great.
Jennifer. And.
Woo! All right. I think they're doing really well here. Really well here. Now. There's some other ideas. If you all touch at the same time, that's a great question, Heather. So it does have to keep moving. It's a machine. You're trying to move the ball, right? I love that idea. But that's one of the very simple rules. You've got to have everybody. You pass it along, and you got to say each other's names. So at this stage, kids tend to be really creative thinkers and can really break this down and think outside the box. At this point, they're not thinking, oh, we must stand in circles. They're thinking, oh, what if we do? And they come up with all of these ideas. Some of the ideas might be to form a ramp and have everybody roll the ball down. You guys want to try that one?
I like it at the end.
We did this backwards. Great.
Jennifer.
And
That was even faster! All right. And of course, this is a form of a simple machine. And one variation on this machine that the kids usually get to, if they try again, they'll get to the point, oh, what if we do an inclined plane, but wrap it around in a circle? And really, you just have to touch it.
wow.
I think we should have let's do it one more time.
Without even time to say the name.
I said it. So as you can see, I'm having trouble getting them to stop. So they're having so much fun. So I want to go ahead and take the ball back from Ann. Thank you so much, all of you, for playing with us and making a lovely inclined plane wrapped around. So of course, if you're going to be telling everybody about simple machines, and you kind of want to tie back to what they're discussing in school, say, then you might be able to say, hey, that's an inclined plane you just made, sort of like what you see on the playground. It's a slide. And if they're getting to that twisted shape of it, then they're making a screw, which is another form of inclined plane that's wrapped. So all of these things are familiar from just their everyday experiences on the playground. And of course, all of these have no right answer. This just tends to be where the kids end up in getting that speed up. So it's all for fun, all to get names passed around. So if you have any questions about the rules of the game or anything like that, go ahead and pop them in the chat box. But otherwise, let's go on into the next activity.
All right. So this is a fun activity that really ties into kind of that engineering design process. And while I was trying to make these rocket cars to show you guys, I really truly got an example of the design process, because my first one is not so good, and I'll be happy to show that to you guys. So this is called Rocket Car Distance Challenge, and the idea behind it is that your patrons are going to be engineering their own car that will be powered by a balloon. Okay. Now we want these patrons to be as creative as possible. They should be able to make any type of car, any kind of cool designs that they want. It's really a chance for them to, even put the A in STEAM, do some artwork too if they want to design it and make it their own. But it does need a few main parts. So your car is going to have a body or a chassis. Chassis. Okay. I'm not a mechanic. And so for this one, for the chassis, I used just a ruler. I thought, it's kind of long, it's sleek, it's going to be aerodynamic, it's really going to get me to 0 to 60 really quickly. But you can there's a variety of things that you can do for that. I'll go over to a materials list with a few ideas after that. Also, you're going to want axles, okay? So for my axles on this one, I did little paper clips, and it'll probably be pretty hard to see. So a paper clip, something long, straight, that's going to hold those wheels together. For your wheels, speaking of, for this one, I used bottle caps. It could potentially work if done correctly. Again, I'll show you. This one is not the best example. And then, of course, you're going to need an engine. Okay. So your engine's going to be a straw with a balloon attached to it. You really want to make sure to tape the neck of this balloon on tight, because a lot of air can slip out. And you really want to get that seal locked in there pretty well. Also, I'm not sure what the name of these guys are, but I used a little straw to hold my axle together. I'm sure there is a mechanic auto name there. But you tape that to your body, and then you put your axle or your paper clip or whatever it is in through that, so it allows your wheels to spin. You can already see. So I want to give you guys a few ideas. The options are really limitless for this. But these are just a few material ideas that you could use. Again, for your wheels, you see bottle caps, circular packing foam, CDs, jar lids, plastic container lids. You could honestly even just cut wheels out of cardboard. I tried that, and I'm not great with scissors, so I wonder, what the plausibility of a second grader cutting out nice wheels out of cardboard is. But anything that's circular and round, okay? Now for your axles, you just need something that's long and straight. For these, again, I use paper clips. Pretty good. I learned, though, that paper clips don't retain their straightness quite like something like a pencil or a skewer might. And then again, for the body, for the chassis, you can use a wide variety of things. So there's a lot of flexibility with this activity. There's a lot of different ways that you could kind of redesign it and redesign over and over and over. So I would also recommend having a lot of tape on hand, maybe some glue. You're going to want the balloons and the straws. That's kind of a must-have for this activity. And besides that, it's kind of whatever you have in your supply closet that you can use and allow the kids to design and redesign. Now I will say, thank you, Heather. Chassis rhymes with classy. Okay, that's going to help me remember it. I will say I would recommend giving your patrons a lot of time to do this, especially if they're super motivated and if they're super into it. If they do it one time and it doesn't work out quite so well, you really want to allow them to do that engineering design method, to redesign, retest, rebuild, and continually improve on their design. Okay? So I will show you guys again, and we'll put these two to the test. This is my first one, and I just kind of sat down and I was like, how hard can this be? I'll just do a ruler, I'll just make some wheels, and I'll show you guys. It's not the most efficient automobile. So you have your straw at the end. Of course, sanitation is a concern, so you only want one kiddo to kind of to fill up his balloon. You don't want multiple mouths on a balloon. So go ahead, blow it up. And the object for this is distance. So you want to see the total amount of distance that your vehicle can travel. Now there are other options. You can maybe do speed if you had a way of measuring that. You could maybe do accuracy, how much it's veering off. So I would encourage you to make it your own and to kind of expand upon the activity, like is good with all activities. But yeah, I'll put this one down here. Again, you can see there's not too much optimism for me. And let's see, how far do you think, Kelly? Do you think it's going to blast right through that, go out the window?
I do.
Okay,
I do.
Ready?
I had hope for you, Brooks.
I know. We'll pretend like it's going. No, not the most effective design. So I did realize, though, what did I do wrong? Why did this not work? I tried it out beforehand. And my wheels aren't the best. There's a lot of tape on my wheels. This thing holding my axle together is kind of a little too tightly pressed together. I think there's probably just a lot of tape on here, and it just wasn't a very effective design. I found a few other things. The way that my axle connects to my wheels, that was really tough for me. It's a paper clip, and I just kind of taped it on there. It probably could have done a little bit better. So for my second design, I went in a little bit different direction. I didn't pay much attention to the body. I just used one strip of cardboard, and I taped plastic or little like Dixie bathroom cups. I taped those to a pencil, and then for this object that's holding the axle in, are there any mechanics out there that know the name of the thing that holds the axle in? I'll wait in the chat box. And I used pencils inside of that, so you can see it's moving a little bit better. My cardboard on top, I still have my engine, a RID, R-I-D, okay. And then for the wheel, oh, a rod, okay. And then for the wheels, yeah, like I said, I just use these little Dixie cups. Still not the best, and I think there's a lot that I could do to improve that, but it did move a little bit, so I want to show you guys how that looked. Another thing, these balloons are a lot easier to blow up once you've already blown them up once. So if you're going to do a big testing round, I might encourage your patrons to go ahead and kind of stretch out their balloons a little bit. All right, let's see. Go, rocket car, go! One of my proudest achievements. So, but that is a good example, learning what doesn't work, redesigning, retesting. I think this activity is really great for that because it gives your students, a lot of creativity, or your patrons, a lot of creativity, a lot of flexibility, and a lot of chances to design and redesign. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next activity. Let me pull this camera up real quick. Okay, so you should just be seeing a big old tub of water right now. And this activity is called Who Dirtied the Water? And this is something we've done with one of our projects in a few of our pilot libraries. Thank you. And it kind of set the stage, and it talks about water pollution. I wouldn't say that it's specifically an engineering activity, but it does tie in really well to the activity that we'll show you after this, low-tech water filter. So this is a really fun way for students to kind of model and visualize what water pollution looks like. And so you can see the overview over here. Now, the activity that we link to is specifically designed for a particular bay in the Boston Harbor. But what I love about this activity is that you can make it your own, and we really, really want you to make it your own. I have modified this story to be specifically about Boulder, Colorado, where we're located. And so I've changed up this script. Let's see, I'll go ahead and go over here. And the basic idea of this script is the first section talks about what life was like in the land, or what water pollution was like before anybody ever lived in your land. Section 2 would be about when the first settlers came, so some of the first Native Americans or indigenous people came, and what pollution might have looked like in your waterway after that. Section 3 would be when we started to get European settlers and the town or the settlement started to grow, what water pollution looked like then. Section 4, as your town grows into a city, what does water pollution look like? And Section 5, does water pollution look like in the modern day? You see this chorus over here. It says, would you want to swim in this bay? Would you eat fish caught in this water? Would you like to go boating in this bay? And so I like to read that between every section to kind of get an idea on what the water pollution is kind of like, and to hear the students' reactions or the patrons' reactions as you pour more different things in there. So here are some ideas for pollutants. Again, you're modeling. So when I talk about fishermen polluting the river by leaving like nylon lines, we're going to be pouring a little bit of plastic, so like some cut up plastic pieces of paper, into the water. When I talk about, for example, vehicles coming to the port, or in the case of Boulder, a lot of cars and trucks coming because the city's gotten bigger, you'll pour vegetable oil in. Now these are very, and you see, I labeled the containers, so you want to use a container that is not see-through, because you don't want your patrons to be able to see the material that's in there, but you do want to label it. I would suggest film canisters to put all these different materials in there. They're especially the dark black ones where they can't see. And you kind of give each patron a role. So I would say, John, you're going to be the sunbathers. Cindy, you're going to be the farmers. And so as their name is called and as it goes to them, they'll have a chance to pour in their pollutant into the water. And you can hear all the oohs and ahs and gross from the rest of the students. All right, so I'm going to read my story. This is Who Dirtied the Water Boulder edition. And you can see over on the Elmo cam, Kellyanne will be pouring in some of our pollutants. Okay? So once upon a time, there was a beautiful piece of land. The land was surrounded by mountains and had a river running through it. Fish lived in the water, and the land was covered by grassland. The land and the river teemed with wildlife. Kellyanne, would you want to swim in this river?
Yes, I would.
Would you eat fish caught in this water?
I would.
Would you like to go tubing in this river?
Definitely.
Okay. So the river carried sediment down from the mountains. And so our sediment is just going to be some sand. A small group of people lived on the land near the river, and these people called themselves the Arapaho. The Arapaho fished for food and used the river for transportation. They also dumped some of their garbage near the river. I believe that's labeled it settlers. And so for this one, you want to, I used just any type of organic garbage. I actually used some coffee grounds, but it might be better if you use maybe cut up pieces of like orange peel or something like that. And coffee grounds kind of sit on the top. Let's see. So Kellyanne, would you want to swim in this river?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
If I had to.
Would you eat fish caught in this water?
I would.
Would you like to go tubing in this river?
Sure.
Okay. And you might maybe mix it around a little bit, so like coffee gets stirred in there. All right. After many years, settlers from Europe came to live on the land. The settlers built a town much larger than the Arapaho village. Some of the town's garbage was dumped into the river. And in the mountains above the river, miners chopped down trees. Without trees, rain carried soil into the river. All right, so now this is just some dirt. We're dumping some dirt in there to kind of model. Not a lot of farming going on in the mountains up there, so we have a lot of mining. So again, that local connection. So now that we have some soil in the river, Kellyanne, would you want to swim in this river?
Yeah, still be okay.
Okay. Would you eat fish caught in this water?
I would.
Would you like to go tubing in this river?
I would.
Okay. I probably would too. More and more houses and shops were built and the town grew. Sewer pipes were constructed to remove the waste from homes and bathrooms, the sewage through the pipes into the river. Fishermen found that nets made of plastic and nylon were stronger of those Fishermen found that nets made of plastic or nylon were stronger than those made of rope. Sometimes those plastic nets got lost in the water. Okay, so we have some kind of just cut up plastic here. Now what about now, Colleen? Would you want to swim there?
You lost me at sewer.
Okay. Would you eat fish caught in this water?
Maybe if I had to.
Okay. Would you like to go tubing in this river?
Maybe if it was really hot.
Okay. If it was really, really, really hot, maybe she could handle it. So the city of Boulder continued to grow, and as it did, the city built laundromats where people could wash their clothes. The laundry detergents went down the sewage pipes and into the bay. And so you could do dishwashing detergent. You could do, laundry detergent. Okay. People cleaning their houses used poisonous cleaners and drain cleaners, which also flowed through the sewage system and into the bay. So this is baking soda. Even swimmers left a mess as their sunscreen washed off into the river. All right. Factories built along the water's edge often dumped their waste and chemicals into the water. And you could do vinegar there. I actually did a little bit of coffee just because, well, I had it sitting on my desk. And as Boulder grew, more and more cars and trucks visited. Sometimes those vehicles accidentally dumped oil into the water. Okay, I think I know the answers, but I'm going to ask anyway. Would you want to swim in this river?
No, thank you.
Would you eat fish caught in this water?
If I could help it, no.
Okay. Would you like to go tubing in this river?
No, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I would like to either. So we have created quite a mess here. And I can almost, as I'm reading it, hear all the kiddos saying, "Oh, gross! Oh, nasty!" And so it really gives them a visualization of what pollution can occur over the years. So now that we've talked about who dirties the water, we are going to move on to a way to clean that water. Okay. So again, this is kind of just a demo almost, and this next activity is going to be more of a actual engineering activity. So let me pull up an additional webcam real quick. All right. So low-tech water filter for high-impact clean is a great activity because it talks about ways that you can clean water without using really fancy, sophisticated materials. So if you have dirty water, you can use just simple things like cheesecloths, different natural materials like sand, gravel. There's a whole wide array of different materials that you can use that aren't really expensive, fancy water filtration mechanisms. So I want to talk first about a real-world kind of application of a low-tech water filter. In Bangladesh, in this specific region of Bangladesh, there were very big cholera outbreaks, and it came from the drinking water, and people didn't really understand why there was getting so much, or why there was so much cholera. And with the help of some engineers, and part of that, or part of the problem with the cholera, or what was causing that, were these small little microorganisms called copepods.
That's correct.
Copepods, and on the backs of the copepods, they would kind of hold different cholera-causing bacteria. So you can't clean out with a low-tech system. It would be hard to scoop out those individual bacteria, but the copepods that the cholera bacteria were on could be easily skimmed. So engineers suggested that the local people there use their saris, that cloth material, to actually filter out the water, and that in itself reduced a very, very high percentage of the number of cholera cases. So just using a simple sari cloth and wrapping it over, I believe 4 times was the magic number that I read, between 4 and 8, and having it go through 4 times the filtration of that sari cloth was enough to remove those copepod smaller organisms, and thus remove the cholera that was on their back. So just a real-world application. I believe there's a YouTube video that you could show if you were doing this activity at your library. And again, I think 4 was the magic number, because any more than that, the water wouldn't filter very effectively, and it would just kind of get caught there. And any less than that, and you weren't effectively removing the copepod. So kind of just a real a cool real-world application. So low-tech water filter is it's an activity in which your patrons are going to be using common materials to design a water filtration device. Now, again, with the time range for this, it's going to be different depending on how enthusiastic and how excited your patrons are. For kids that really, really like to experiment and want to do that redesign process, you might even do 30 minutes to 1 hour. I've done this activity in the past using just natural materials, so using just leaves, dirt, small like sediment, and gravel and things like that. And even just with a limited amount of materials, we still did it for about 45 minutes just because the kids got so into it and they really wanted to make it better and they wanted to have the cleanest water come out of that filtration. So plastic water or a soda bottle and a variety of filtration materials. We have a 2-liter for our big demo, which we'll show. Thank you. So this is our demo model, and this is kind of the one that we created. And in a library setting, it would be a good way to kind of show you, hey, this is like it's been very, very engineered through a few different design processes, and it's what we determined worked really well. Do you want to go ahead and demo this? So this is our dirty water from Who Dirtied the Water. Yeah, it's pretty gross. And let's see what it looks like when it pours through.
The balloons in there. I mean, nets.
And so it might take a while, and the longer it takes to filter, the better of a job it's doing almost. It's taking more time for that water to pass through all those different layers. And what we have in this demo one is gravel on top of sand, on top of activated charcoal, on top of a piece of cheesecloth at the end. Is there anything I'm missing on that? I think that's everything.
No, that is everything.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and set this to the side. I can already see some water coming out. It is much clearer. And we'll set it to the side and kind of let it filter through for a while and come back and revisit it after we go through the rest of the activity. I can't say I've ever had to filter out sunscreen and coffee grounds and coffee out of water. But for your patrons, you might not have a bunch of 2-liter bottles. You might not want to spend that much material. Some of this stuff, if you have to buy a whole lot of it and everybody's filling up their 2-liter, it could get a little expensive. So I would suggest for your patrons using, all you have to do is get like a smaller water bottle, there's the camera, and cut it in half. And on the top, you can put the top, after you put your material in there, you can put it right in the bottle. Oh, thank you. And you can see Kellyanne's done hers over there with activated charcoal. I did cotton balls in mine. I just wanted to see how that might work with such a solution. And so things to think about would be like porosity, like how much pore spaces are you giving the water to filter through? Is it going to be able to filter big things out, or is it going to filter out more effectively really, really tiny like microorganisms? So, let's see. Do you want to? We'll try the cotton first.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, we got more of our dirty water.
Yeah. All right.
You can also use eyedroppers or smaller containers. We just went big.
Heather's asking, where do you buy activated charcoal?
It's a very common material for fish keeping. So any like Petco, PetSmart, fish store, it's pretty common. Just ask for activated charcoal. Basically, it's just charcoal that's been extra processed to have more surface area and more areas to catch the materials, and it catches things chemically rather than just physically. So it's a very good filter. That's why it's used for keeping fish.
Cynthia, can you do anything to make the edges of the plastic bottles less sharp? That's a great question. I haven't really thought about that. I think you could maybe take a nail file to it, or maybe a piece of sandpaper to it, and that might dull it down a little bit. Do you think?
Yeah, and it really is just our cheap way of making a filter and a place to catch the water. You could also just buy filters that you'd use for a kitchen, like just plastic filters, and put them on measuring cups or other very sturdy cups. You'll want to test it first, because if it's kind of wobbly when you stack the filter on top, it'll spill, and then you've got to have lots of paper towels. Our paper towels are over there. We're ready.
Yeah, we are.
We recommend that as well.
And then putting masking tape around the edges, that's a great idea too. So I'll put my water. We're actually
Yeah, do you want me to do this one too?
Yeah, go ahead and do yours, and let's compare and see what they look like.
So I just did some activated charcoal, and I put another bit of the cheesecloth and just put it on the base of the filter here with the funnel, rather, with a rubber band to hold the charcoal on there. And if you can't find cheesecloth, it's pretty kind of in grocery stores in some odd places sometimes. If you can't find that, the nylons work, or just some stocking kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this water in there. And it's coming through, still a little dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Not what you want to drink, of course. So that really emphasizes the point that once we make water dirty, it's pretty challenging to get it clean again.
Right.
But you can make progress.
And will you actually pour a little bit more in there for me?
Absolutely.
Let's see. Let's do a little compare and contrast. So it almost seems like mine, or let's put them under the elmo.
Yeah.
Mine has more very, very tiny particles, which I'm actually a little surprised. I thought the charcoal might let a few of the tiny particles through.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can. Try not to make too much of a mess, but it might be impossible. It's a pretty similar color. They both kind of have a darker sandy color to them. But I'm seeing a little bit more smaller, very, very tiny materials in mine, whereas Kellyanne's has filtered out a lot more of those. All right, so do you want to check in on our big 2-liter demo?
Absolutely. Why don't I bring over the what's filtered out of that, and we can do another comparison.
Okay.
These are a much more complicated filter, so I've got what's left here in the bottom. We're going to put it under our close-up cam over here. See if you can see the color there on your screens or not. Okay, catch the water here.
Hey, if that's the worst we do, then we're all right.
That's right.
Let's see. It's a little hard to tell, but the one that's been through the 2-liter is a little bit more clear, a little bit less dark. I think the next step would be for me and Kellyanne to then kind of combine forces and say, well, I know my cotton balls did this well. I know your activated charcoal did that well. Here, I'm just going to get up here. You can see maybe a little bit of a difference. It's not a huge difference. Let's see, maybe cotton balls in a coffee filter. I do like that, yeah. So I guess the next step would just be to kind of see what you've learned, figure out what's working best and how you can combine those different materials to make one really super effective water filter. So again, just kind of reiterating the fact that you don't really need high-tech equipment to filter out water and to make an impact. There are a lot of other YouTube videos out there talking about how engineers have done kind of low-tech water filtration with reeds, with dirt, with gravel, with different materials in more remote locations. So yeah, Susan, I do like that idea of using cotton balls in a coffee filter. Of course, don't drink the water, no matter how clear it looks. Even if your kids do an amazing, amazing job filtering the water, it is not safe to drink, especially once you see all the junk that we put into ours. All right. And so if you go to the STEM Activity Clearinghouse, you'll have a nice little write-up for that and a way to kind of effectively facilitate that activity and just kind of different ways to integrate it and make it your own. All right. So this next activity, Wind Turbine Tech Challenge, is just a fun little small activity that, again, all of these have a lot of modifications that you can do. But I'll show you guys how to do the basic setup of this. And really all that it's going to require is a little bit of Play-Doh or modeling clay. It'll also require some toothpicks. I think theoretically you can maybe do this with like some paper clips, but the best bet would be toothpicks. So you'll get out 4 of them. If safety is a concern, you can always you can get more dull toothpicks that don't have the sharp ends, or I recommend just kind of you can kind of build them yourselves or tear off the pointed ends of them. But of course, safety is always something to think about. A notepad full of Post-it notes. And a straw. So if you're doing all these activities together, you'll probably have a lot of straws on hand. And the first step will be put all 4 of your toothpicks together and stick them right in the middle. It's kind of like you're setting up a base. Kind of that same idea behind with the rocket car distance challenge. You're setting up, I guess, your axle, if you will, for your rod. I learned some new vocabulary today, thank you guys. And you can see we have our Play-Doh base, the 4 toothpicks in there, and then we have a straw on top. And it does require a little bit of engineering. When I first actually, one of my first few days on this job, Kelly, and we did this activity, and I was like, oh, this will be so easy. And it took me some redesign and some modeling to get it correct. Can you go to the next slide?
Absolutely.
So from there, you will just place your Post-it notes on there. And that's going to be kind of like the blade fans. So super, super low tech, pretty inexpensive too. I imagine most people will have these things around their library. So I just did 3 blades. Let's see how that works. Okay, so rotating a little bit. So, doing the redesign process, I'm going to change the locations of my blades. And after you have your patrons create their first successful windmill, and then that's when you can kind of start asking those questions like, okay, this is working, this is turning around, it's rotating, but how can we improve it? What kind of modification? What if we change the shape of the Post-it notes? What if we added additional Post-it notes, like 2 on the turbine instead of for each one instead of 4? What if we decreased the weight or used a different material instead of Play-Doh? So there's a lot of modifications that you can do, and again, that whole engineering design process is how can we make this better? Or in my case right now, how can we make this at all? There we go. And if your kids, students or patrons are getting upset because they are not doing a good job designing it, you can always show them this video and say, hey, look, the guy that's teaching it couldn't design a good one either, and make it feel a little bit better. Okay, so I have quite a bit of redesigning to do with this. But you can see how this could, it's pretty low tech, it's pretty easy to do, but it could also take up a good amount of time having patrons just trying to redesign and get the most effective windmill. All right.
One thing you can try is to use another straw to blow through it, and that just kind of directs your breath a little bit more. So like Brooke said, lots of straws with this one, today's activities.
Not the best one I've made, but it'll work to generate a little bit of electricity. And that activity would also tie in well if you were doing something maybe on like renewable energy. If you were talking about different alternative energies, that could be a fun little activity there. All right. Give me just 1 second, and I'm going to cut off our Elmo cam.
And Susan had a great question. Do you use other materials to experiment or just reposition the blades? And does this work better with designing each turbine in small groups or individually?
Oh, that is a good question, Susan. I would suggest, depending on your age group, if you had really small kiddos, then it might be better to do it in a group. That way that they're all kind of working together, they're all learning and making the same mistakes together. If you had older patrons, older teenagers, tweens, it might be better to allow them to do it individually and see what they come up with. And then, do you use other materials to experiment or just reposition the blades? I would definitely use other materials. If you had maybe bigger pieces of cardboard and you could find a way to latch them onto that straw, that would be a really kind of effective modification. You can see on this slide, changing the angle of the blades, the size of the blades, the shape of the blades, could they be more curved? Or you could just put new materials in there. I like the Postit Notes, obviously, because you can just stick them right on there. But if you really wanted to expand on that activity and make it a little bit bigger, longer, more advanced, you could definitely do that. Okay, so I wanted to ask you guys a question, kind of open it up for discussion. Which one of these activities would you be most likely to facilitate in your library? So we went over 4 or 5, let's see, we went over Team Machine, Who Dirtied the Water, Low-Tech Water Filter, Rocket Car, and Wind Turbine. So which one of those could you see yourself doing most effectively in your library, and why? Rocket Car. Go ahead and make that chat box a lot bigger. Oh, wonderful. And so, Amy, you said you've done something similar to Rocket Car. I was wondering if you could maybe elaborate on that and what activity you did. Susan wanted to do Who Dirtied the Water because it's messy. I like that. And Pam, yes, doing that outside would be great. When I've done that in the past with another organization, we did that outside, and it makes cleanup a lot easier too. And yeah, I love how Who Dirtied the Water and Low-Tech Water Filter kind of tie in together. Again, it makes your cleanup a little bit easier, and it kind of has that, you present the patrons with a problem, like water pollution is a problem, and then you talk about ways that you can kind of go in and correct that problem, if you will. And so one thing about Rocket Car Distance Challenge, if you're doing it with really maybe younger patrons, or you don't have enough time to have them actually design their cars, if you have just an RC car or like a tiny little toy car, die-cast metal car, like a Hot Wheel basically, you could do Rocket Car Distance Challenge with that and with the balloons and the straw, and you could just talk about, well, where should we place the balloon? How much should we blow the balloon up? What kind of surface should we put the car on to allow it to travel the farthest distance? So, Lori, I see your question. I guess that's more related to NASA at my library, so you can talk to us about that after the webinar. We kept it very basic. Oh, very nice. Okay. And so also with Rocket Car Distance Challenge, what I like is that you can kind of break down all the places that you could have problems or that you could have friction. You could have friction with the wheels to the table. You could have friction with the axles into the rod that they go into. You could have friction, air friction with the car body, and wind resistance. So there's a lot of, if you want to get really scientific and talk a little bit about physics and things like that, you totally could do that and expand upon that. Well, great. I am seeing some awesome responses here. I just kind of wanted to open up the next few minutes. If you guys have any questions for us, we can do a little Q&A about ways to facilitate these activities or specifics of the activities. So I see the question, Cynthia says, has anyone powered anything with the wind turbines if they have done them? No, I certainly have not done that. And I think with that, as low-tech as it is with the wind turbines, it would be hard to actually generate any power. There's no mechanism to actually create power out of that wind turbine. There are a lot of great, not so expensive kind of educational toys, if you will. I don't know if I want to use that term. Designed, Connects makes some, and there's a lot of other companies out there that make renewable energy sets that you could integrate into your library. Of course, they're not low tech, and they're actual things that you would have to buy. Thanks. Kellyanne's putting a link in there for Kidwind and some real model turbines that you could actually do with your patrons. I wanted to hear from you guys. What body of water would you choose? What local body of water would you choose for Who Dirtied the Water? The Platte River? Okay. So there are a few different things, whether you're doing a river, whether you're doing a reservoir, or whether you're doing a bay, and ways you can talk about water pollution. But yeah, it's something to think about, and it's kind of fun because it gives you a chance to go back and kind of learn about your city or your township's history a little bit, and kind of maybe some of the industry that's been there, and some of our some of the pollution problems maybe that they've had in the past. So I think if I were to really do this activity for Boulder, and do it for a group of people and really want to bring in that cultural element, I would talk a lot about some of the mining that used to happen here, for example. I know maybe up north in northern or eastern Colorado, they might talk more about like the agricultural element. And then, of course, the pollutants that you can use, there's a ton of options with that, too. Of course, you don't want to do anything too dangerous, and be mindful. You wouldn't want to mix something like like ammonia and I think bleach. That's like very dangerous. It makes mustard gas. So be somewhat mindful of what you're actually putting into the water. Yeah, has anybody used solar panels or done any kind of renewable energy activities with solar panels? We're working on right now kind of using solar panels to power squishy circuits, which we think could be really fun. Simple solar oven. We have a activity like that on our STEM Activity Clearinghouse for a solar oven. That's true, yeah, the dough can get nasty, and you do need to, I know it can be somewhat of a pain to go through and make sure all those individual pieces of the squishy circuits are actually working. It's still a really good educational tool, though. Okay, guys, so if anybody has any more questions, I'll give you a few more seconds. We can see when you're typing in the chat box, so we'll give you a few more seconds to ask any questions that you might have, and then after that, we'll close out the webinar. You will be redirected to a SurveyMonkey link afterwards, and if you need a certificate of attendance for any professional development reasons, a link to that is at the very end of the SurveyMonkey. If you have any trouble finding that, just shoot me an email afterwards, and I can send you the certificate of attendance directly. So again, after this closes out, you'll be redirected to a survey. Please, we love the feedback. We love hearing what works, what doesn't work, what you might want in a webinar. Don't forget that the next webinar will be next Wednesday, November 15th. It'll be a little bit different. We're talking about social media and ways to integrate that into your library and effective ways to use social media to kind of disseminate scientific information. And then in mid-December, December 13th, we're going to be going over all of the cool STEM events, or some of the cool STEM events happening in 2018 that you can kind of align your programming around. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Yeah, Susan, I agree. Engineering can be a little intimidating. The big thing about engineering to me is that failing is good. You want to fail so that you can learn. So I think with that engineering design model that we showed you guys, that is a really effective tool to use. Heather, yes, all these activities are in the STEM Activity Clearinghouse. I think I sent you guys an email beforehand, and that has a link to all of those activities on the STEM Activity Clearinghouse. And I'll send you a little follow-up afterwards and show you where the YouTube recording is, send you the slides, and I'll send you those links again as well.
And if you do try any of these activities today in a program, we'd love to hear from you. That's why the Clearinghouse exists. It's got a really cool review feature that's just been updated with some really easy to use categories. And so you just enter some stars for 4 different questions and let us know what you think. Maybe if you traded out a material, or, hey, like that water one, we really needed to do it outside, or hey, we made this work inside by just putting plastic down everywhere. Whatever you do and you'd like the rest of the world to know, if you could post it there so that we can all help each other see which STEM activities work well and really engage people in learning and trying new things, we'd love your help so that we're not all reinventing the wheel. That's what it's there for. So if you can just take just a couple minutes after you try any of these and post your review, we
really appreciate it. Yeah, and that's the whole thing is, if the more reviews we have, the more sortable we can make it, and the more effective it can be for you guys. Okay. All right. So from here at SSI in Boulder, we will see you soon. Thank you guys so much for attending, and yeah, be on the lookout for those next few webinars. Thank you guys.